All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So let's start with your trail name and your real name.
Okay. My trail name is Foxtrot, and my real name is Victoria Edwards.
Okay. And tell me about what was your occupation before coming out here to we're at miles 625,
Point four.
right?
Yep.
Okay. So before coming out here to mile 625, soon to be mile 2,198.
Yeah. So before coming out here, before COVID, I had been living in Japan. After COVID hit, I came back to the States and started working for a Japanese newspaper based out of their DC office. I was working as a reporter, specifically first covering Congress and then the White House. And it was really more of a research assistantship position rather than sometimes I would go out to the events and have the opportunity to cover things on scene, which is what I had wanted. But the bulk of the work was, a 9 to 5, sitting in front of a computer every day at a desk.
Okay. Okay. And so we got to back up. Not many people can say that they lived in Japan. So talk to me about this whole Japanese story and how did you find yourself working in Japan, which led to the Japanese company?
So I guess my interest and connection with Japan started when I was very young. Part of it through pop cultural exposure. I mean, we had things like Pokemon and all of the TV shows and video games. And then also my best friend growing up, she is adopted and she's Chinese, but her adopted family, the mother is half Japanese, and so there was kind of a cultural influence there when we would go and hang out. And I mean, we were best friends from the time I was 6 years old. And so, growing up, I kind of had that influence and love for Japan and the culture. And then when I was in freshman year of high school, my mom, as a Christmas gift, got me Japanese language tutoring lessons. So every Saturday, I would spend 2 or 3 hours studying the language. And I'd studied French as well because in our school we only had Spanish and French as options.
Yeah.
French never clicked with me, Japanese did. And I knew by the time that I was a senior in high school that is what I wanted to pursue in college. So made my college decision based off of schools that offered that. Continued studying it there. I mean, I came in at their first year, second year, third year, fourth year Japanese classes. And because I had already studied it for 4 years in high school prior, I was able to come in at the third year level.
Oh, cool.
And so from there on out, did third year in my freshman year of college, fourth year, and then from there did independent studies. And
Amazing.
so by the time I was over there, I was already at a very advanced level.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were a Fulbright scholar too.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Exactly. So I do think that early language preparation and advanced language preparation helped with when I was thinking about what I was going to do after school. There were different options I was considering. I think we might have talked before about my interest in the military. Looking into, whether I wanted to go to officer candidate school or if I wanted to do a Peace Corps. I mean, I knew I loved traveling and being out and talking with people and doing things, in an engaged fashion rather than sitting at a computer desk. I already knew that early on.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I applied for was a Fulbright scholarship in Japan, a research scholarship rather than the teaching one, coming straight out of undergrad. And I think my language preparation helped me with that. And the nice thing about it was you could basically design and propose the study that you wanted to do for that grant. And so everything, my interests, could basically be, customized into the project that I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so the project that I had proposed and was doing was interviewing young people between the ages of 18 and 25 about whether they were interested and involved in politics in Japan.
Oh, fascinating.
So it was like an ethnographic, interview-based study with people traveling and talking to people, young people my age, about that topic, doing surveys.
Oh, that's so cool. That's cool. Okay, so fast forward, now you are just months ago, you are working for the Japanese company and you've made it to the place where you're actually reporting at the White House and at Congress. So talk to me about that. Kind of paint a picture for me about this really amazing job that you had so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely an amazing opportunity, and I loved everybody in that workspace. The people are really what made the job. But, let's see, and every day was something different, which I did love.
Yeah.
And it, used all of my research skills and my knowledge of Japan and the language and the culture. And so in that sense, it did have a sense of purpose for me. But eventually I got to the point, like I said, where it was a lot of 9 to 5 desk work, just sitting in front of a computer all day. And with where I was living, which granted was my choice, I guess I felt kind of pulled within myself of my different interests, because there was the part of me that loved being outside and active. And so I knew from the beginning when I moved to the area, I mean, it was still somewhat COVID. So when I started working in the position, we were not fully back in our office yet. So I had chosen a location to live near Quantico, Virginia, which is quite a ways outside of our office in DC. I could commute because there was a VRE train station nearby, but the commute, once we did start going back to the office, was an hour and a half one way. So I would get up at, 5 in the morning, go to the gym, shower, eat breakfast, leave my house by 7:30, and the train ride, would be an hour and a half, get to work 9:30 a.m., get off of work 5:30 p.m., not be getting back to my house until 7:30 p.m., and do that on repeat every day. And so, just the logistics of that and the sitting at a desk all day didn't leave much time for cultivating, the other aspects of myself that I wanted to cultivate, and didn't leave much time for, my love of nature and exploring that. And in that sense, I started to feel very stagnant and also, kind of pressured in this box life that I was living on the path to success. And it was a lot of titles. It was a very prestigious position. You had the Fulbright, you had the working in the White House, you had the Japanese newspaper that was the New York Times of Japan. So on the outside, if you look at the resume, you go, wow, this is great. You're fluent in Japanese, you're working at this paper, you are a Fulbright scholar.
Yeah, you're on your way. You've got it. You're set.
But if you start digging beneath the surface, the actual day-to-day was just very unhappy for me. And I had reached a point where, because sometimes the hours could be unusual, and that was something that I was there for because I was committed to the position and the services that we were doing as a news organization. But like I said, outside of that, being out of my house from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., there were sometimes I'd have to work on weekends. And at one point I was looking at my schedule, and I didn't know when I would have a good 8 hours of rest, just because of the way that things worked out. And that stressed me out so much that I started crying on the train on the way to work. And I usually don't cry. That was one of the first times that I had cried in 5 or more years. And that's when I knew that something deeply had to change.
So how did you make that decision? Why the Appalachian Trail? And then how did you come to the decision to commit?
Why the Appalachian Trail is such a difficult question, and it's one that I still grapple with. I mean, the AT I got my introduction to when I was a sophomore in college, and I had 2 friends, one of whom was a roommate who was a former Boy Scout and had done backpacking, and we'd gone on a trip for, I think it was sometime in summer vacation, just a 3-day trip from Delaware Water Gap up to Buttermilk Falls in New Jersey.
Pretty.
Yeah. And it was one of the hardest rains I had ever experienced on the AT, which is saying something because we've been out here for 600 miles now.
Yes, it does.
So the rain is coming. One of the hardest rains I had ever experienced. But once we got to our campsite, it was up kind of on, not the top of a mountain, but higher elevation. And a foggy morning or a foggy evening, the fog, you couldn't see anything, rolled up at one point from the valley that was beneath where we were camping on this mountaintop site, and then just the most beautiful, vivid sunset I've ever seen in my entire life. And that was one of the moments that, I fell in love with the difficulty of the trail, but also the beauty of it and nature. And I had been involved in loving nature my entire life since, summer camp as a youth. And so I think in that sense, it was always something that I was tossing around in the back of my mind since I first got that exposure to it and learned that you could do it. But I was also influenced by, when I was in high school, I would read a lot of philosophy, and philosophy is about the state of nature and sociology, politics, and this idea of, a world, a natural world beyond the laws that we have and customs we have in society. And I think in my work and what I was setting up for myself and those expectations, I felt very constrained by those laws and expectations and the social desires and ambitions. And to have something outside of that was free of that, I think was represented to me in trails and in nature, but the aspect of a long trail specifically because you're out there in a semi-structured environment. But for that 6-month period, of release from the boxes.
The boxes. Okay. And how did you actually make like the leap to actually go from this job? You had a lot of momentum to jump into the Appalachian Trail that you've decided would be that growth experience outside of the box.
Let's see. I was brainstorming different things that I had wanted to do, like just taking time off on a Saturday to say, hey, like this is obviously not working. Let's brainstorm what we could do differently, either in life or, major change that I felt that I needed. And so I think I was just tossing around different ideas because I knew first I listed what I wanted, and I knew that I wanted to be like outside in nature, doing things with my hand, and also having like some sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I wasn't committed. Actually, let's say I don't like the idea of a 9 to 5 anymore. Or it feels too inauthentic to how I want to live. Like I want to live intuitively, and if my body wants to get up at like 10 a.m. or go to bed at 8 p.m. or something like that, I want to have the freedom to work and not work as it feels natural to me.
Okay.
And so from there, I knew like one of the things that I didn't necessarily want was a 9 to 5. And so I was throwing out ideas like, maybe park ranger or freelance work or seasonal work. And looking at all of those different things. And one of the things that I came up with as just kind of like, okay, what do I want for my life as an experience? What would I regret not doing? Was like hiking the AT. I don't remember the moment that I had made the formal decision to hike the AT, but one of the stories that I tell people is like, my origin story of my name, Foxtrot, which is where I was tossing around all of these ideas. And one evening I was taking out my garbage, and throughout the garbage, there's a fox on the other side of like where you throw out the garbage, and it's looking at me, I'm looking at it. Foxes are an animal that I've always connected with, and I felt compelled to walk up to it, so I did. It didn't move. It just like was sitting there like a dog would, and it looked at me and I looked at it, and we shared a moment, and I realized that if I want to have the life I want to have, I have to go after it. It's not going to come to me. So I said, I'm not going to postpone this AT decision anymore. I'm just going to go after it.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah.
Okay, here you are.
Yeah.
So what advice do you give to other people who are still living in the box but feel that trapped feeling, that feeling that you were on that train but didn't know where to go?
Yeah. For me, I've always thought of it not even as a train but as a roller coaster, because it felt like in my own mind for some reason, maybe since, because from a young age I was an honors student in high school and then in college and a high achiever and this and that. So I felt kind of constrained to like, this is my path as a high achiever that I need to keep going and climbing the rungs that is set up for me as it is with the skills and accolades that I already have, that I have to keep going, and that I felt pressure maybe from my family and my friends and like other people. What would they think if they saw that I threw all that away? And from that, I felt constrained to like stay on this roller coaster without really any control of where it's going, and also the difficulty of like, if you want to get off, you have to push back against all of that force that I felt was just getting more forceful as I was going faster, as I was accumulating more of these accolades. What was the question?
So what advice do you give to people? Okay. Yeah. Who are in that, on that roller coaster and feeling those constraints from you throw it all away. Like, are you throwing it all away? Are you really?
I think if you have realized that this is not working for you, like if you just have that feeling, that is the first step and the impetus. And I really think that you should reflect on what is important to you in life. And like for me, it was being able to be outside, being able to live freely and authentically to myself. Like I think that was one of the big things, is that I was living this prestigious life, but that prestige and what I was getting from it wasn't truly in line with what I wanted from life. And so it's two different sets. So you're accumulating accolades or prestige or finances or anything else, but if that's not truly what you want, then I think in the end it just doesn't matter to you, and you'll start to feel bad and out of line with yourself. And if you're living a life that doesn't make you happy, I don't know, for me it was like that happiness is more important than the money or the titles or anything else. And so I think you need to reflect on what is truly important from you, and especially as a young professional. I know it can feel like, when I was coming to the ATO, I'm giving up this entry-level job that would have propelled me on to bigger and better things. A lot of people my age are either getting married or thinking about buying a house, and we're always told that, like, you need to start your, like, 401k now, and if you don't start investing, and, like, investing both in a social and a life sense and also in a financial sense, then down the line it's going to hurt you, because the earlier you start, the more you have.
Right.
But if you're investing in things just because you're told that you should, not because you really want to or truly believe in this, just because you're thinking this is the path that's set out for me and this is what everybody does and so I should do it too, if that's not really what you want, you're not going to be happy, and then 20 years down the line you're
What
upset.
happened?
Yeah. And or like not all of the older people, but a lot of the middle age or older people who are on trail or even off trail tell me, like, I'm so glad you're doing this while you're young, because I wish I would have.
Yeah.
And now I'm, older and it's more difficult because of the finances, because of my body, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think early on it's very important to reflect on, yes, try everything, but if it's not working, switch and go for what is really important to you. So reflect on those values, see what your means are, and just go after what is truly important to you.
Yeah.
I think as long as you're following what's really important and while living within your means, where there's a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
And so you can make the life that you want. You can have that life. It might be difficult to get there sometimes, but I personally think that the pursuit of that happiness, your personal happiness and personal fulfillment, is the best thing that you could do for yourself to live a happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah. Any final words? Anything else?
Just take the plunge.
Take the plunge.
Take the plunge. Do it.
Go for it.
There's no knowing without going. So go.
Don't follow the recipe.
No, absolutely
Follow
not.
your recipe.
Follow your recipe. Make your own dish.
Yeah, that's right.
Make the dish you like.
I like it. Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Let's go get some miles.
Let's do it. And breakfast.